Om. 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vridavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayini Ambatvam Anusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetam Vridatuhe Namaha. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rutra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapada Panishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyana Vastita Datkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam na vidhusura suraganaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha Sarvadharman parityajya Mamekam sharanam vraja Aham tvam sarva papebhyaha Mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So welcome everyone to this next session on the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is titled The Yoga of Knowledge and Wisdom. So by the time we come to this 7th chapter, we are actually touching upon a new chapter. It is actually a whole new realm which we are looking at it, and this is kind of based upon the fact that now we need to have a completely new perspective of what was presented before us. So, it's imagine like, you're sitting in this, on top of a mountain, and on top of this mountain, there is this hut, and you've been sitting and meditating in this hut for a very long period of time. Now you have understood completely that, you're beyond this body, mind, intellect, because only, when you go, again, not that only, but when you're now sitting on top of this mountain and you're really not interacting with anybody at all, and all these interactions typically are mainly because of the fact that I have thought of myself as this body, mind, intellect, and the relations and everything is connected to that. But now you're sitting on top of this mountain in a hut, and there are no people around, nothing. You're just meditating. You've now kind of understood that you're not this body, mind, intellect, and you are something beyond that. And after doing this, you just open the door of the hut and you just look outside. So when you look outside, what do you see? You see this beautiful vista in front of you. You see the mountains, the valleys, the greenery, and the beautiful, the clouds, the sunshine, everything, you see this. All this just comes in front of you. Now, you're very eager to know what is really this whole thing that you see in front of you. You see this beautiful creation, and your heart just, wants to connect with that whole creation now. No more it's just people and everything, but it's just this beautiful creation in front of you. And even as you get immersed in this creation, you are now looking to understand who really created this beautiful world, this beautiful universe, which is, lying in front of you. There must be somebody, there must be something, there must be, there's something beyond this. How can just all this happen just like that, right? So that's what you see the 7th chapter introducing us to. The 7th chapter really goes into understanding who is that creator who's Ishvara. And in order to understand that Ishvara, now you see that Lord Krishna prepares the student to understand and to take him to a next level of relationship, of their own relationship. Arjuna is a student, and all along he's been looking at Krishna as a teacher. But now Krishna is taking him to the next level, where he's saying, Arjuna, listen, now I'm going to tell you that this beautiful creation, everything you see, is actually nothing but me. So that's the grandeur of that vision, where, you see Arjuna being set suddenly into tune with something which is beyond himself, and which is beyond where he sees what Krishna is all about. He's actually preparing him to understand that universal level. So he starts with that, and he gives him that beautiful knowledge. He gives that glimpse of himself, and he starts to say that even as I'm telling you about myself, I want you to now feel that whole thing and make that knowledge as yourself. And then he also tells him that why is it that everybody doesn't feel that way? And he explains about, that knowledge itself is so rare. It can only hit somebody who's ready for it. So he gives all this in the first 3 shlokas. So we will chant the 3 shlokas. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Saptamo Dhyayah Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Saktamanaf Partha Yogam Yunjan Madashrayah Asamshayam Samagram Mam Yathagnyāsyasi Tatshrunu Jnanam Teham Savijnanam Idam Vakshyam Yasheshatah Yajñātvā neha bhūyonyat Jnātavyam avashishyate Manushyanam sahasreshu Kaschid yatati siddhaye Yatatam api siddhanam Kaschin mam veti tadvatah. So Krishna tells that among all human beings, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate, which will be coming up, of course, later. But he says about how that it takes many, many lives, and it takes a lot of time. And as much as, we are doing all the sadhanas of going to the temple, observing our fasts, even doing a lot of charity, all this, finally, what is it that's going to tip, the really, like Malcolm Gladwell would say, what is the tipping point? Ultimately, it is this knowledge, this understanding of this knowledge of where I start to give up all my lower things to which I'm attached to, where I start to think about something higher. And that is why that example of the hut that I gave you, where as long as I'm sitting in this hut, I am thinking about just the fact that I this is me, I'm there, I'm meditating or anything. But when I'm exposed to that beautiful vista in front of me, I start to think about higher things. So this is why in this chapter, you see, it's telling us about how that I need to start thinking about this rarity of the human birth, about how what is the fact that I've always looked upon as a lower self? What is it about the higher self? How can I start to look at myself, introspect? How can I really look at the whole evolution itself and see how I can move beyond that? And how can I attain all these worldly objectives or spiritual goals? So, any questions so far in what this transition means to all of us? Why is it necessary for us to think about the higher? Do we even think about the higher? When we go to the temple, we see through the idol which is in front of us, we can actually understand that there is some power beyond us. But how much do we see that power? How can we see the power? So that is again something that in the 7th chapter, you will see about how Lord Krishna presents so many different techniques, so many different ways in which I can start to feel that this is not just me alone, but there is something even beyond me. So that's what we will start. We started looking at it already with the lower and the higher prakritis. So we see how Lord Krishna, again being that superb teacher that he is, he starts to first start making that connection. When I said this person, when you're looking outside of the hut and you're looking at this beautiful scenery in front of us, in front of you, what is that scenery really made of? So last time I started to present about how, when we look at the scenery outside, we see first, our eyes get accustomed to seeing only maybe the buildings, the people and everything. But if I start to break down each and everything, I see that the earth, not just the earth, nature, is actually made of these 5 elements, starting from space, and from space has come this air, and from this air, you see fire, and then from the fire, water has come, and from the water, finally the earth. We see mostly the earth in front of us, but if I see beyond that earth, you see all these elements. And that is, if there is a way that even if I can look at the whole scenery in front of me, I'm actually hearing the train, and because I'm staying close to a train station, I can see the train. It's so amazing. Immediately my mind would go and see that that is only a train. But even looking at the train, I can see everything which is out there. There is that earth nature in the train. There is a fire because of the, the heat which is generated in the train itself. And then you see this aspect of water. You see this space has to be everywhere. Air is everywhere. So it's this idea, this is almost like a meditation tool where anything and everything I see, can I now break it down into these components of the 5 elements? So that is the aspect that Krishna starts to first starts to teach Arjuna to focus that aspect in him. So this whole entire universe, now taking it beyond one object and taking it from that object to now everything that I see, not just a train, but I'm seeing the human beings, I'm seeing the platform. I'm just using the example again as a train station, but you can see from wherever you are, wherever in the room that you're sitting, the sofa, the people, everything, break them down into those 5 elements. So that is that power of that meditation of even on the samashti. And we have talked about this in Drikta Vivek, one of the last shlokas, where there are many kinds of meditation mentioned. One of them is about this Bahya, what is that called? It's a meditation on the external self. So just to give that idea of how this entire world is nothing but this whole thing. So you will see in the next 3 shlokas where Lord Krishna breaks up this entire world, not just into those gross elements, which is what is seen by our eyes, but also much more beyond that. What is it that makes all those elements which is out there? What is it that makes that train move? What is it that is making the bird? I'm hearing the birds here because it's early morning. So what is it that's making the birds chirp? What is it that is making somebody speak? So in a sense, this entire universe is nothing but that Ishvara. And that Ishvara is made of, basically, is a mixture of two, that the nature of Ishvara, the nature is the word that is used here, which is Prakriti. And that nature Prakriti is of two kinds. One is the lower and the other one is the higher. So lower is this all inert and insentient material that I'm seeing. And the higher Prakriti is, or we call this Purusha, higher Prakriti or Purusha as you might call, is the one that is making all these inert elements come to life, come to something where I can absorb it. So that's that whole aspect which is discussed again. And in here, we also discussed briefly last time, and I'll bring that example again of the spider and the web, how this entire world, this entire Jagat can again be defined in, the creator of the Jagat you can think about is the nature is two. One is the Jagat Karanam, or the cause of this whole thing that you see in front of us, the gross part of it. And the other thing is the Nimitta Karanam, the intelligent cause. What is it that made this whole thing come about? So this actually, the shlokas which are there in the section is actually very deep. You can also look at this whole Jagat Karanam as the Maya part of it. And the Nimitta Karanam is that consciousness which is giving life to that Maya, if you will. So you can also look at it like that, Jagat Karanam and Nimitta Karanam that way. And this is where last time we discussed also about this beautiful Mundaka Upanishad shloka, where this example that I presented last time, and I'll show this again, which is spider and web. Yathornabhi srijate grinnate cha yatha prativyam oshadayah sambhavanti yatha satah purushat kesha lomani tathaksharat sambhavatiha vishwam. So that Vishwam is like 3 examples actually he gives them here, but we will pick only the spider and the web example here. So just like, you know, this spider, how does it really create this whole web? It actually creates something from a secretion within itself. So the spider itself, through the secretion, creates this whole web, which is kind of like a nest, you know, in which it itself is residing, right? So the spider itself is the cause, Jagat Karanam, and Jagat Karanam in the sense it is responsible for that inert material of this web. And it is also the Nimitta Karanam or the intelligent cause, right? So just like that, this entire world also, what Lord Krishna is saying, you know, when Arjuna said, who is this really, this God principle? Who is this creator? So Lord Krishna says, I'm going to tell you about myself. And he's telling about how he himself is that Ishvara, which is responsible for this whole world. And it is also, he himself is responsible for creation of this whole world. He is the Nimitta Karanam and he is a Jagat Karanam. So the whole thing you can, or he is the Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karanam. He is the intelligent and the material cause for the whole universe. Now, you would be asking, then tell me more about, let's break this down as to which is the lower self and which is the higher self. And that is why you see in shloka number 4, which also we have done it, I'm just reviewing it again. He says, the lower self is basically all this earth, the water, the fire, the wind, and the space, the 5 elements. And along with that, it is the ahankara. Ahankara, the I factor, the ego factor, and also the factor of the manaha, the ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakriti ashtada. Come manaha buddhi. In the second line, you see manaha and buddhi. So this is the 8-fold character here. So again, it's such an amazing, this is, a whole different way of really understanding this entire God principle, And if we look at the God principle this way, that it is this entire universe, and what is this universe? This universe is nothing but these 8 elements, then I have a greater appreciation now of really who that God is. That God is in front of me. The God is in everything. It is that lower self, which he's talking about here, but it is also, so as we said, this is all the 8 elements, but actually one thing to keep in mind here, when he says it's all these 8 elements, he's actually talking about these 8 elements in its subtle form. Okay, subtle form of this thing. So in Tattva Bodh and Atma Bodh, and Viveka Chudamani, there's a lot of description about the gross body, and the gross body made of the 5 elements. And these 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, space, it goes through the process of Panchikarana, which is a combination of all these elements in its subtle form in the Tanmatras, and it forms this gross, right? So here the reference is actually at the Tanmatras, the subtle level, where he says is the lower nature. So then what brings this inert material to its functional capability? So that is where he talks about then this idea of the higher nature or the consciousness, apare iyam itaha to anyam. So what I just described was my lower nature, the gross part of it. Now I'm going to tell you the higher nature, which is vidhi, but no, understand from it. Now, what is my higher nature? It is that Jiva Bhuta Maha Yayedam Dharyate Jagad, the principle of life, or the essence of what makes all those other elements what they are. Like, for example, we give many different examples. I mean, even now I gave this example of what makes the train move, what makes the bird chirp, what makes the bulb glow, what makes the fan move, all these things are that essence part of it, and that is the higher nature. So he gives that example of the higher nature. Then in shloka number 5, he ties both of them, and he says about how ultimately it's both of them together, this lower nature and the higher nature, both together is really the womb of this entire creations. So this is again, of course, the shloka number 5, which we said. I'll go to this shloka number 6. So, just like how you see this building, which is built out of, lots of mortar and bricks, basically, the wood and everything. Now you see, he ties both of them together in saying in shloka number 6, how that entire thing is kept together, and what is it that keeps together. So this shloka number 6 is very beautiful, where he says, Etat yodini bhutani sarvani tyupadharaya aham kritsnasya jagatah prabhava pralayastata. So he says, ultimately, I am the one who, with this aspect of lower nature and the higher nature, is the womb of this entire creations. So womb, you can look at it as the creation. So I am that creation of this whole universe, but I'm also going to tell you, I am the pralayaha. Pralayaha, I'm the dissolution, and also prabhavaha. I'm the source and the dissolution. Everything, it is only me. That is the idea he's trying to show. So how do we really understand this aspect? We can only, I've given a few examples before, and I'm going to bring that one example again here, which is this aspect of the carpet and the cloth. We saw this basically as an example of how you can see the whole universe as in a design of a carpet, right? So in this carpet, as much as we see the whole creation of these designs, but where did the designs really come from? The designs actually came from this, basically the thread, right? So it is really the whole roll of thread which has been used by this weaver. You know, he puts this in this weaving machine and he starts to move the cloth, the thread. And as he moves the thread, you know, you see the cloth formation happens. And ultimately, finally, you see this whole carpet. Sort of this example of what I said with the spider and the web, right? So ultimately, you see the thread itself is the cause, and the thread itself is also the effect. So the cause and the effect is there in the carpet itself. So too, for us, if you look at the entire world of everything which is in front of us, the people, the objects, even at the mind level, our ideas, all that is nothing but which are sometimes we call this as effects. And unfortunately for us too, you know, we become so conditioned to focus on the effect that we don't see actually the cause. But the cause is inbuilt. You know, the cause is really inbuilt in each and everything that we are seeing. So that is what Krishna is trying to say. What you're seeing in this entire world, Arjuna, is nothing but me alone. I am there in everything, whatever you're seeing. But you are seeing only mostly my lower nature. So, but I want you to rise above the lower nature and actually focus more on what is making that lower nature work. If you can, so this is a second type of meditation that you can see, where everything that I see, I start to either use this thing of neti neti, or I try to dissolve it in my own mind. You know, I dissolve all these colors, like even with this carpet that I'm seeing, I'm dissolving all the colors of the carpet, I'm dissolving all the designs, and I'm trying to see what is it that is holding all this. And what is holding all this is nothing but that same thread which is holding, you know, which is in between, is going there. If I can even practice a meditation like this, when I'm sitting down, where I'm dissolving each one and get to really thinking that thread which is there in front, it would be amazing, you know. So that's what he's trying to say in the shloka, etadyodini bhutani sarvani iti upadharaya aham kritsnasya jagataha. So that's why I'm saying, aham kritsnasya, I am this entire universe, and I am also the same, the source and this. So that's the Ishvara that I am. So according to this Bhagavad Gita, now you see how, you know, that creation is nothing but this product of union of this Purusha and Prakriti. And you see that the lower Prakriti keeps changing all the time. And that is why I have this example of this pot. This pot is made of mud. But once my use of this pot is over, what do? I just break it. It goes back to mud. And then I use that same mud to make all these other objects here, right? So creation then is nothing but this union of that mud and the forms, right? And now, if you think about this a little more, this form is actually nothing but it exists only in my mind. I am the one who has created the same form, and I have established a utility for this form, and I'm dissolving the form again in my own mind. And that is ultimately, and then I convert it into something else, and then I go, continue to use this, right? So this is the beauty on how he's explained your creation. And therefore, ultimately we say in Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, this is again a major Mahavakya, all this ultimately is nothing but Brahman alone. If I can have this knowledge and I can meditate on this creation and see the entire world as that cloth, the thread which is holding the cloth. So imagine again, how much I have transformed within myself to look at the universe as one. Any questions or any thoughts so far? Because now we are entering into another beautiful part of the thing where he now explains about the lower form. What are the different lower forms and how are they held together? What is it that is holding it together? So ultimately, the whole thing that is holding together is the Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. All this is nothing but Brahman alone. And that is the underlying reality of it. So you will see that in the next shloka, this beautiful, there is an example, a simile which is brought out, which brings that harmonious interrelationship of this lower and the higher, Purusha and Prakriti. And he gives this example of, and that's again, I talked about Maya and what is holding the two Mayas, So let's chant this very beautiful shloka, which is very, very famous. So I know in every chapter I say there are some famous shlokas, and I've been hinting on all of them. And even here, this shloka number 7 is very important. And of course, all these are tending towards how we should be looking at the world, right? So let's chant this. Mattaf parataram nanyat, mattaf parataram nanyat, kinchidasti dhananjaya, kinchidasti dhananjaya, mai sarvamidam protam, mai sarvamidam protam, Sutre Manigana Iva, Sutre Manigana Iva. So, as much as Lord Krishna is really telling us, see Ishvara ultimately as the ultimate cause of the universe, just like how the thread is the ultimate cause for the carpet. So here he's illustrating that same thing very, very poetically by showing that we need to look at the whole world. How do we do this? So, mattaf parataram nanyat. So he's assuring assuring Arjuna, saying that beyond that lower and the higher, there is nothing else. Matta parataram na anyat. There is absolutely nothing. Kinchidasti. Not even a little bit. There is nothing at all. Oh, mighty arm one. He's trying to tell Arjuna. He's praising him, Dhananjaya. And he's saying, don't even worry about it if you're looking for something else. the buck literally stops here. If you can focus on me as the cause of the whole Jagat and focus on the cause, not on the effects. Today, we live in this world of effects, right? We interact with all these inert materials, which is of the lower nature of that Brahman, that ultimate Ishvara, that Brahman in the Saguna form, which is Ishvara. So he says, Mattha Paratram na anyat kinchidasi dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre manigana. So he's just giving him again sutre manigana iva. So I'm giving this example of this beautiful pearl necklace here. Of course, you can replace with many other examples, but just he's trying to show that here, the word gem actually is, of course, referring to each and every aspect in this world itself. And he says, how, just like how you have this thread, which is holding all these pearls together, that is how this entire world is actually nothing but held together by that principle of Ishvara. That is my higher self. That higher self is this sutre, this particular thread, and that is holding each one of these objects of the world, which is my low Prakriti, together. So you see both the lower nature and the higher nature. The lower nature is also nothing but just me alone. That is what Krishna is trying to say here. So the significance, if you look at this thing, is each one of the beads are nothing but the lower nature. We unfortunately focus on that lower nature, right? We focus on the pearls and we get enamored by it. So next time when we look at any necklace, and I know there are a couple of marriages coming up in our own devotees, in all your families. So when you look at the necklace, look at it more as that aspect of Brahman, which is holding everything together. So Krishna is saying, just like how the thread is holding everything together, so too I am the one in the form of the higher cause holding each one of these lower natures together. If I can just develop this kind of a vision, and that's the significance of this necklace, is to develop that vision that ultimately everything is nothing but that Ishvara. And Ishvara is nothing but the Saguna form of Brahman. And that Ishvara is there in and through everything. There is absolutely, then you will see there is no concept of even any kind of duality. When I say duality, the various dualities that we experience is this joy and sorrow, right? Sometimes I'm joyful, sometimes I'm down. And then also heat and cold at the body level. And then mana, apamana, we say honor and dishonor at the intellectual levels. And joy and sorrow, of course, at the mind level. At the body level, it's this heat and cold and other kind of feelings, other kind of, other kind of emotions, but emotions at the mind level, and also the intellect, at the intellect level, the thoughts of honor, dishonor, we said. And at the body level is the sensations. I was looking for the word sensations. So all this ultimately is also Ishvara, but it is the lower aspect of it. I need to shift my personality, my focus to the aspect that is holding everything. So that is the shloka number 7. Now, having explained all this, Lord Krishna now goes into how, if you think about each one of these beads is nothing but the gross manifestation of Ishvara. Now let us look at how each one of the beads, what are the different kinds in which that Ishvara is manifesting. So that is why in the next literally 4 shlokas, Lord Krishna goes step by step and he explains about 14 different examples. And in each of the examples, he then says, you know what? I am present in each one of these creations. And you will see this 14 examples that he talks about. They're all from, things that we go through every day. We see and experience that every day. And he says, in each and everything that you experience, it is my own subtle nature which is out there. So he's literally, it's like when we, I remember when I was young, in this Chanda Mama and all that, there will be this example of spot the 10 mistakes in this picture, So there will be somebody who is, trying to hold this pencil in the hand, but then the lead is missing or whatever, that kind of thing. So then, you look very intently to see what are all those things that which is flawed, right? But here, Krishna is saying, okay, why don't you look around and tell me what are all the objects that you see where you can see me, So that is how he's giving this next 4 shlokas. So again, the idea is not really looking for those objects, but looking at the same object in a different manner. Now you're looking at the same object as Ishvara. So that is why he gives all these 14 things as pointers to explain his glory, his vibhutis. So that is the idea. So let's chant these, let's see how many of these 4 shlokas we can do. Rasohamapsu kaunteya, Rasohamapsu kaunteya, Prabhasmi shashi suryayoho, Prabhasmi shashi suryayoho, Pranava sarva vedeshu, Pranava sarva vedeshu, Shabdakhe paurusham drishu, Shabdakhe paurusham drishu. So he's saying that when you look at water from now on, when you're taking this cup of water to drink, now don't look at that as just water which is quenching your thirst. Look at the essence of water. So here he's saying rasaha, the taste. Rasaha, he says sapidity or the taste. Of course, we may say what is really there in the taste of water, right? But you can see what is the essence of water. As a chemist, I may say it's nothing but H2O, but even beyond the H2O, what is it that helps me quench my thirst? Think about it that way. So that is me. That essence of water is in me. So you see how, slowly you start to develop a sort of one bhakti in its true essence, So these shlokas really give you that aspect to channel our thoughts in such a way that now I'm looking at that same objects with a great amount of gratitude, with a great amount of an awe factor, So, which is why he starts with big examples, not just today. If I have to use an example, I may use my cell phone here, my mouse here, all these are the ones which is close to me, right? But he's really forcing us to look at the nature, and he says, think about water. And that is what I am. Then I'm also the light in the moon and the sun. Prabhavaha asmi in Shashi, the moon, and sun in the Surya. So all this is also nothing but me. And then Pranavaha Sarva Vedeshu, the Vedas. In all these Vedas, what is the ultimate in the Vedas? It is nothing but knowledge, right? So what is that knowledge? Where has it emerged? Where has it come from? It is finally from this syllable, which is called as Om. So Pranavaha, which is Om, in Sarva, all of them, all the Vedas, I am that Om. And then Shabdaha Ke Paurusham Drishu. In Shabdaha, in all those words, I'm that, I'm the sound in the ether here, as he says. And in space, I'm that, K, which is space, I'm that sound which is, if you look at later, maybe I won't dilute thing here today. Later, we'll see how all the sense organs, the 5 sense organs, their devatas are all these space and all the 5 elements. They're connected to the sound, the what we see, and etc. But here he's just giving one example, which is I am the sound in the space, and I am the virility in men. Now, of course, what he's trying to show is not just men, but all beings. What is it that gives that? What is the nature of a human being? What is it that is giving the dynamism in a human being? So all that is, so he takes big examples just to push the envelope in our own thinking. And he's trying to show that ultimately focus on the essence of what they are. Then he goes to number 9, where he continues to elaborate on some more of his vibhutis. Punyo gandhav prativyam cha. Punyo gandhav prativyam cha. Tejaschasmi vibhavasau. Tejaschasmi vibhavasau. Jivanam sarvabhuteshu. Jivanam sarvabhuteshu. Tapaschasmi tapasvishu. Tapaschasmi tapasvishu. So he now goes to describing some other things that we as human beings sometimes get attracted to. So one of them is perfumes, you know. So he's saying, what better perfume can there be than the fragrance that comes from earth? So I'm just reminded again of Kerala. In Kerala, pretty soon, the rainy season is going to start. It will start by the 4th of June or something. And after that, for 3-4 months, it will be raining continuously. But then the beauty of that rain is that, you know, it just brings that fragrance of the earth, you know. And I'm sure many of us have smelled also, you know, how the mud, when it gets that first rain in there, you know, it's so, I mean, it's amazing when you smell that smell there, right? So, punyaha gandhaha pritivyam. So, the sweet, I'm the sweet fragrance in earth. So, you can see now again, we talked about the sound associated with space. Now we have the smell associated with earth. So you see the ears as a sense organ, which hears the sound, is connected to space. Now we have the sweet fragrance, and then later you will see how the fire is connected to the forms, the eyes, you know. So all this will come. But here again, it's the sweet fragrance of the earth. So in Shakracharya in his Bhashya actually says about how any fragrance that you smell ultimately is nothing but a product of our own prakriti or nature. And any odor is a product of ignorance or avidya. So he says that. So next thing he says, tejaha, the brilliance, cha asmi vibhavasau. I am the brilliance in that fire. Okay. And I am the jivanam. I am the thing that gives that aspect of life in all beings. Now, many times the question then will come, you know, okay, now I see. So that is why life is Ishvara, you know. No, life is not Ishvara. Life is the set of processes, the prana, apana, vyana, udana, samana, all those processes is what constitutes life. And that aspect which gives that all the 5 elements in jivas, that is also nothing but me. That's what Krishna is saying. And then tapaha cha asmi tapavishu, tapasvishu. So in the tapasvishu, that is the person who observes extreme tapas, even for such a person, I am the one which is, I'm the aspect of austerity in that tapas. So I'm the one which gives the energy, which builds in my body to give that person, to hold that body together, even when somebody is undergoing that tapas. So all this is nothing but just me alone. Then in shloka number 12, in shloka number 10, as much as we have seen so far, where he talks about, the fragrance, the brilliance, and the austerity and everything, now he talks about the seed, basically about how did this entire thing come about. It came from the a seed, so he says about how Bijam mam sarva bhutanam, Bijam mam sarva bhutanam, Vidhi partha sanatanam, Vidhi partha sanatanam, Buddhir buddhimatam asmi, Buddhir buddhimatam asmi, Tejas tejasvinamaham, Tejas tejasvinamaham. So he says, now think of me, O Lord Krishna, as the seed of all beings. So when I look at everything in this world, they have to come from somewhere, right? I look at the nature, all the plants, the trees, they have come from a seed. And now, of course, the mango season I think 2023 mango season is probably the best season so far I've ever seen. Everywhere you go, see, whether it's in Kerala or whether now I'm in Chennai today, and you see nothing but mangoes everywhere. And they all have come from somebody who planted a seed in the ground, right? So, Bijam Mam Sarva Bhutanam, I am that seed in all beings. So too with all the buildings. If you see it, they have come from a certain design, a blueprint which was there. And that blueprint translates itself into this building, right? So, with the Bijam Mam Sarva Bhutanam, I am that seed in all beings. So know me as Vidhi. Know me, Vidhi Partha Sanatanam. Know me as eternal. I am the seed in every possible thing. Okay. So the last 2 shlokas talk more about the gross aspects. Now you're seeing he's talking a little more on the subtle aspects here. And then he says, Buddhir buddhimatam asmi. Anyone, wherever anyone says, oh, look at that smart kid, or look at that smartphone. So I am that smartness in that phone. I am that smartness in that kid. Okay. Tejasvinamaham. Anywhere, wherever you see just beautiful splendor, when you see all these huge, the weddings, when you see everything is so beautiful, everything is so splendorous. What is it? All that also, Krishna is saying finally, Arjuna, that is who I am. So we have seen now some of the manifestations of Ishvara. So Krishna is telling Arjuna about, as you look at everything, look at how the vibhutis, all my glory, I remember Swami Tejomayananda would say about the vibhutis of Swami Chinmayananda, wherever Swami Chinmayananda went, in each and every place, where he has started either a center or a school or a college. And now that I'm part of this university, where this university is located in this beautiful mountain, and everything was the vibhutis, And so to hear what you've seen so far is the Vibhutis. We will continue with the rest of the two in about 2 weeks. Okay, so I'll explain why 2 weeks very soon, but I'll stop the recording also. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Stop sharing and then stop.